welcome everyone to the session on master's applications in Australia. I'll first briefly take you over the outline of today's session. I'll be talking a little bit about Project EduAccess, and then our panelists for today will give you an overview of the application process before talking a little bit about funding opportunities and then providing you with some general tips. And then we'll open the floor for questions. So Project EduAccess aims to improve access to higher education, leadership, and professional opportunities, which are unfortunately privileges for most people from marginalized communities who are systematically denied such access to cost, information, and dispositional barriers. And this organization is a modest attempt to improve inclusivity in these spaces by removing some of these barriers for marginalized communities in the global south. And we hope to achieve this by providing mentorship and engaging in advocacy. So these are our panelists for today. We have Husain and Aanis with an LLM at the University of Melbourne, and Burhan with a master's in advanced mechanical engineering from Monash University, Melbourne. And over to them.
Thanks, Ritika, for having us for this session. I believe it's very important to gather as much information as possible before you go for a step like this, to going for your master's, particularly going abroad. So it's a very good initiative that they've taken, Ritika, Misbah, and Samia and their team. And thanks for having us here today. So just to give you an overview of the master's programs in Australia, they generally go for 1 or 2 years, depending on the course and the university that you choose. But mostly people will opt for the 2-year program, particularly because back in India as well, in many of the countries, the 2-year program is more recognized, and it helps when you go for jobs and further in your careers. Looking at the financial aspects of the master's programs, because we're particularly focusing on scholarships and stuff. So in Australia, Department of Immigration provides the international students who are on a student visa. They can work for up to 40 hours in a fortnight period, which they can adjust according to their schedule. So they can do all the 40 hours in the first week and then take off the second, or they can distribute it 20 hours each week. So you get a chance to work while you are studying in Australia, so that you can take care of the financial aspects of life in Australia. As mentioned here, living cost in Australia is similar to what you will find in most of the Western states like US and UK. Generally, roughly a cost of about $2,000 to $2,500 per month, which you can cover, as mentioned earlier, if you're working within those hours during your uni, you can cover those costs. And the tuition fees generally in Australian university is quite high, but there are many different scholarship opportunities that you can avail and that can help you to cover those costs. We'll talk about those in detail in further slides. You can go to the next slide, please. So the first step when you're going for your graduate studies anywhere in Australia in particular as well, is to select the course that you want to study. I would say always focus on what you are passionate about, what you want to pursue in life, and what course you want to study. And first, select that one, and then only go ahead with the other aspects of it, like the university you want to study in. Then once you have the course in mind, you can then shortlist the universities that provide that course, and particularly the department where that course is particularly good. Then you can go for that university, regardless of where it stands in the rankings. There are other factors that will come into play when you are selecting a university. There is the competitiveness of admission. Obviously, a lot of people are applying to the same courses, to the same universities, particularly in countries like Australia. A lot of people, there's an inflow of students every year. You also look at the reputation of the university and the accreditation of the courses. Again, this is an important aspect of master's courses here. You have to look at the whether the course is accredited, which organization is responsible for it. For instance, in my case, I did my master's in mechanical engineering. So Engineers Australia is responsible for the accreditation of the courses. And sometimes if the course is not directly accredited, you might have to get it assessed with that particular organization. You might have to write in CDR reports and go through that whole process if the course is not already accredited. And sometimes the university itself will help you with that process, depending on the course that you select. So again, it's important to gather all of this information before you select your course and the university. Another important,
right. Burhan, if I may just add there.
Yeah,
so,
sure,
so
sure.
That's a very important point that Burhan is talking about, that don't look at just the rankings, because so many times it happens that like this decision one has to make while choosing a jurisdiction, because usual jurisdictions are UK and US, and Australia remains the third option for many. But then many a times there are better scholarship and funding opportunities in Australia, which can become the deciding factor for many of us. And even in terms of rankings, I feel that there is greater the universities in the UK are more popular than the ones which are in Australia. So there many a times Australian universities rank better than the ones which are in the UK. It's just that not many people know about it. So these are 2 points of information that I wanted to share. Uh, Please go
Sure.
ahead, Burhan.
Thanks, man. So again, another important factor is location and the campus setting. So here in Australia, there is generally the main cities where you have a lot of these universities, but some of them are also in the regional areas. So that comes into play, particularly if you're looking to stay for a longer period, if you're looking at visa options in the future as well. So if you're studying in the regional areas, that can help you with the immigration process later on. But again, main factor would again be which course you're studying, and if that university is providing, the department is providing that course, and how good they are in that particular department. The fee structure and the scholarship opportunities again will vary based on the university, again the city where you are studying and which course you are pursuing. But mostly there will be scholarship opportunities department-wise as well. So once you have selected your course, and you can go through I'll talk about it later as well. We can go through those specific sites which provide you particular scholarships based on the course you're doing. Again, department and university facilities relevant to the course are important. Again, you have to also look at what are your future career plans. What are you looking at? Are you looking at going for a job after your master's? Are you looking for PhD options? Are you looking at research? Or are you going to go to industry and work into the workforce? So depending on that, you will also have to look at the universities. Again, look at which city you're going. That's also important, particularly in Australia, because here the different cities provide you with different opportunities. So depending on what field you are in and what you are looking at in the future, are you looking to go into academics, or are you looking to go into industry? So based on that, you will have to make those choices. Next slide, please. So this is just to give you an idea of how the websites look when you go through the master's courses in Australia. This one is from University of Melbourne, the engineering courses. So as you can see, there are various areas, because particularly nowadays, there are lots more specific courses that are being provided by the universities. As you can see, there's biomedical engineering, there's mechatronics, there's additional infrastructure. So a lot of the courses are more specific now, more specialized. So you can opt for those courses that are not necessarily a general engineering field, but a more specialized course. And the university websites provide all of that information. It's just that you need to know where to look before you go for your master's. Next slide, please. So again, this is one of the courses. When you go through that website, will give you the details. So it will let you know the fees for the course. And there are generally two intakes here in Australia. There's the February intake, and then there's the July intake, the winter session. And study modes, generally there is full-time and part-time, but for international students, because of visa requirements, generally full-time studies have to be undertaken because the visa requires you to complete the course within a specific period of time. Here it shows the pre-course codes, which is again important for international students. You have to check that the course that you are undertaking is registered by the Commonwealth. That will be determined by the pre-course code. And then you will have the requirements for those particular courses in terms of how your bachelor's have gone with what is required in terms of the percentages there. The English language requirement is there. You have to go through IELTS or TOEFL or PTE. Again, you have to stay up to date with the requirements whenever you are applying, because some of these things can change. Like recently, the PTE, they are considering whether to include that in the English language requirement or not. So always stay updated with all of these requirements for your particular course. And these websites generally go to the website of the university itself, because it will give you the most up-to-date and relevant information that you need before applying for your master's. And it will also give you the options you have in terms of scholarships and whether you are eligible for that, what is required, and how you can tick those boxes so that you can apply for those scholarships, or sometimes you can automatically be considered for a particular scholarship depending on the requirements and whether you are already eligible for it or not. So again, these websites are really informative, and they give you an idea of what options you have in terms of scholarships and funding. Next slide, please. Husain, if you can go through this now.
Yeah. So yes,
Okay.
thanks, Burhan. So I'll take you from here. So with respect to application process, the way I went about my application is that my university required me to contact a university affiliated education agent. So there are some companies such as IDP who we have to contact, and we don't have to pay them anything at all. It's the university that will make all the payment to them, but then we have to go about the entire application process through them. So you don't have to put in the hard work of creating a student ID or account and then upload your documents. Everything A to Z will be done by the university agent. So, firstly, of course, like you have to look at whether you're eligible for a course or not. So, particularly look at your academic grades, because sometimes your eligibility depends upon what grade you got. And secondly, your English test scores like TOEFL and IELTS, your eligibility strongly depends on that. And third thing is whether you have adequate work experience or not. So in some courses, work experience is needed, but I applied for LLM, Masters in Laws. So there it wasn't a requirement at all. Third is the required documents. So your required documents can be your Aadhaar card, your passport, academic transcripts, and all the basic documents, your class 10 and 12 certificates. And fourth is application fees. So one important point with respect to your application fees is that the education agents who you will contact, sometimes they give you some offers and they waive off your application fee because they already have some kind of a collaboration with the university. And sometimes I get a sense that they also have some kind of a, what should I say, uh, preference for a particular university because in their opinion that university is good, so they encourage them, I mean students, to apply to that university, and they also give offers in the form of waiving off the fee completely. So you can have a conversation about this with your education agent. That's how it worked for me when I was applying to the Melbourne Law School. Things can be a bit different in case of other universities. And required standardized test scores. So this refers to the standardized scores for for example, your proficiency in English language. Different universities have different threshold. Melbourne University has a lower threshold, but other universities, such as Monash and ANU, they have slightly a higher threshold. And last is selection criteria. They will of course be looking at your like they'll usually say that the candidate should have a proven academic credential, and they also look for potential. Like if a student does not have great scores but shows some kind of a promise that they will perform very well after taking admission here in this university, then you will stand a good chance. And they will also look at your work experience, but they are not mandatory. Uh, and then, yes, second point is that, of course, you have to check the website. So read the website thoroughly because it will help you avoid any kind of confusion at a later stage, because these websites are very informative. And secondly, never hesitate to write to them because they are quite responsive. So in case you have any query with respect to your eligibility and your um, stay, I mean, accommodation, etc., always feel free to write to them. Can we move to the next? Yeah. So now we will look at particularly at Master of Laws. So one very important point is that you need to keep the deadline in mind well before you apply, so that you can plan your entire CV building also according to that. So one interesting thing about Australian jurisdiction is with this, which is not there in the UK or US at least, that they have multiple intakes. For example, um, here they will accept applications twice a year, and they will provide four intakes. Like at four stages in a particular year, you can make an entry to a particular institution. That's how it works, at least in Melbourne University. So let's make a deep dive into Master of Laws. So it's a 1 year course. It's a 1 year course even in the UK and the US. And here they give an option to do it part-time. So I found that many of my classmates were working professionals, and they were doing LLM for the past 2 3 years. So they can really do it at their own pace. Here, at least in Melbourne Law School, it is very flexible, and it is particularly made for professionals. Like you can complete your LM in 4 years, or as late as you want. You can do it at your own pace. And second important thing is that they only teach intensives. That means that you won't have to attend classes throughout the year, throughout the semester. You just have to be there in class for 5 days for one subject. And in those 5 days, everything will be done and dusted. After that, you have to just submit your assignment after a month or so. And again, you will have an option to do a take-home examination and a research paper. So, so just keep this in mind that this is a great point, great opportunity for professionals who want flexibility. But yes, this can be a turn off for those who want something like a course which is being taught in another jurisdiction where they have to attend classes throughout the semester. So yes, this is what I want to talk about with respect to this. And this is a very important point which not many people were aware. Many of my friends were not aware when they were making this application, that this is quite flexible, and it can be isolating also, because if you are going to your class only 5 days a week, 5 days a month, because usually you will do one course in 1 month. So that can be very isolating for some people. It worked out very well for me, but it may not work out for you. And secondly, Australia is not as populated a country. So those who want people around them for their mental well-being may want to keep that point in their mind, and yes, make a decision accordingly. So yeah, we can go to the next slide now. Yeah, so we can take a look at the so there are two things. One is applications. Applications will be open twice a year, as I said earlier, and intakes will be 4 times a year. So these are two different things. You need to apply, for example, your application, you should have made application by 31st October if you want to join in February. So those of you who are in the middle of your fifth years, then I would say then that it is good that you don't apply right now, or in case you didn't apply, then that's completely fine. You should make an application around March or April. I made it sometime in March. And so that you can go next year, which is like in July 2024. An application is to be made around March 2024. It's good to apply early. Don't do it late. That's what my education told me. Because sometimes scholarship related decisions get influenced by that. Somehow, I don't know how it works, but that's what my education agent told me. So I hope it's clear that intakes and applications have different time periods. Applications can be made twice a year and intakes 4 times a year. So you can get a sense that it's all very flexible right from the stage of making application. And one important point is that for me, I quickly had to I decided that I need to do an LLM and quickly get into a law school, because I suddenly felt that working further does not make sense as per my plans. So then at that time, when I was looking at applications in the US and UK, I felt that the timeline there was very long. Like like by the time my LLM in the UK would have started, I would have been done. I would be done with my LLM in Australia. So that's another point of consideration that you can keep in mind, that when do you want your masters or any application whatsoever to start. If it is a bit time sensitive, you want your course to start early, then maybe choosing, like I chose Melbourne Law School for one, for that reason, among many other reasons. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I'll quickly go through this. So when you're making an application, there are some documents such as application form, which will all be done by your education agent. But still, in case your agent is not available, then all of these websites are going to have their own application forms, which you can fill on your own. It will be easy to do all that. And second thing is personal statement and letter of motivation. Usually what we know of personal statement is like preparing a long personal essay, just like we do for applications in the US. And some of you, I'm sure, applied for roads and shevening. uh, so there you must have submitted your personal statements, which were running into some 500 and 1000 words. Something of that kind is not going to happen in Australia. There I there's some issue with the PPT, but it's okay. There I found that my education agent only asked me for a small write-up, which I submitted, and that was sufficient for all my applications so yes, a long essay is not needed. And very importantly, a letter of recommendation is not needed for making an application in Australia. So you don't have to worry about who you have to take your LOR from, who you need not contact any of your professors or your bosses or employers. It
Sorry,
will all
Hussein,
be done.
just wanted to add a point there, particularly regarding
Yeah,
the
please.
personal statement, because it might be required for your visa purposes as well, and there it might be a bit more detailed. So just wanted to check that there.
Yeah.
So maybe for your uni, you may not need that to elaborate a personal statement, but when it comes to the visa process there, it has to be a bit more elaborate. And I found particularly when you're going through an agency, they will let you know what details need to be provided. They can help you in that process of writing that personal statement, particularly in terms of
Right.
the aspects of going abroad and whether you're planning to stay there, and if you're coming back, how that course,
Yeah.
how the masters you're done is going to help you in the future, how it's going to
Yeah.
help when you come back to your country. So all of those aspects sometimes
Right.
are to be covered in the personal statement, and so it may be a bit more elaborate for the visa purposes. So once you're going through that document, just make sure that you keep that in mind. You include those details so that the visa process is also covered along with your master's application. Thanks
Yes,
for taking
that's an
part.
excellent point. I mean, thank you so much for adding that. Like, you'll be asked that why do you want to do this master's? How do you plan to use your knowledge? And those general questions were there. And yes, that's a great point. And yep, so the third thing is that you need to submit your CV and resume. So I felt that, like Burhan can also add to that. I felt that, the main deciding factor of your application really becomes your CV, because there's no personal essay as part of your application. For visa, yes, for visa it's there, but that won't constitute your main application. So how strong your application is won't be determined by the personal essay that you write for visa, but you might be asked to write a small, very small essay either for your scholarship or for your application. So for my LLM, I had to write a 300 or 500 word. No, I think it was 300 word short paragraph that I had to write on why do I want to do this LLM. So it was that general. So I'm not even sure if that can really be called a personal essay, but I had to just give my intentions of doing it. So Burhan, like, did you have anything of that kind in your application?
I think just yeah, like you mentioned, just a small personal statement was all that was required, nothing too elaborate. And like you mentioned, yeah, the
Okay.
resume sort of takes care of most of the details that they require,
Yeah,
because you already have
right.
your educational background there, you already have your work experience there, so that mostly takes care of all the requirements.
Hmm. So yeah, so one point in mind that I kept was that in for your applications in Australia, the CV has to be a little bit more detailed than a usual CV that we send to other universities. So because there is no letter of recommendation, and even personal statement is as small as a 300 word paragraph. So you only have your CV to show what is it that you have done. And of course they can take a look at your academic grades, but then important internships, the research projects, or the work experience that you have, all that should be laid out in detail in your CV. But of course don't make it a very big CV, but try to be brief, because they will be looking at so many applications and they have less time. So your CV should quickly catch attention and quickly tell what is it that you have done. So the philosophy of less is more might be the winning philosophy to adopt in your application.
Yeah, just to add one more point there, because you mentioned the work experience, but again, it depends on the courses you're taking. In a lot of the engineering courses for the masters, even if you're doing purely masters in research, the research courses, the work experience doesn't necessarily count as much as your academic background and how you're done in your bachelor's and before. Even with a lot of the scholarship programs, they will look at your academic records, and even the running record that you have in your masters will help you avail a lot of the scholarships. So in many of the courses, particularly I know about the engineering ones because I pursued mechanical engineering. So in a lot of the courses, they focus a lot on your academic records, and that will determine your chance of getting a scholarship as well, more so than your work experience.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a very good point. I mean, uh, you know, it also gets influenced by the jurisdiction. For example, US, Burhan can correct me. In the US, I think I'm quite sure that they ask for work experience. They give a lot of weightage to how much work ex you have. In fact, even their websites explicitly state that, for example, Harvard website of LLM, Masters of Laws, they state that students who usually get final admission have about 2 to 3 years of work experience, and they are able to make the most out of their degree. Whereas on the other hand, the other extreme would be UK, where they do not give importance to your work experience or the publications that you have. They give great importance to your academic, I mean, your marks, your grades. And that really becomes the deciding factor, because so many of my brightest friends had excellent work experience, excellent publications, but then their grades were not as such, which could have, which demonstrated that they were class toppers. So they rather went to big universities such as Yale, etc. But then they couldn't get into Oxford. So that is one particular attribute of the entire UK jurisdiction, not only Oxford, but yes, Oxford has even a higher threshold for grades. And I think in the middle of these two extremes is the Australian jurisdiction. There, for example, the three of us got scholarship from India. So one of them was a fresher. He was class topper, and he did not have work experience. The other person was uh, a professor. He was an assistant professor, but then he was quite senior. Like he did his BA LLB in 2017, and I did mine in 2021. So I was going to Melbourne Law School with 2 years of work experience with strong grades. So yeah, I would accept that I had very good grades, and my work experience was also, I think, quite good because I worked in multiple organizations at the same time. So my work profile was extensive. So what I feel is that the what made my application strong was, I think, my uh, work experience, because usually, like for example, I'm from Jamia Millia Islamia. Our Jamia's collaboration with international universities are not very strong, just as Jindal has. For example, at Melbourne University, you'll find many PhD scholars and students from Jindal, because Jindal has some strong relationship with the university, and it has relationship with many other universities abroad. But then Jamia does not. So you will have to take into account that, if you're a BA LLB student, what kind of a relationship did your university have with these foreign universities? So accordingly, you'll have to tweak your strategize your CV building. I felt that my university did not really have that kind of relationship, so I really focused on my work experience, which I think was quite strong, and that's why I got the scholarship. Can we move to the next slide, please? Yep. So, yeah, so letter of recommendations, I think, Burhan, we have already covered that. So transcripts, yes. Now, one very important point with respect to transcripts is that sometimes universities can be a bit very, like, especially the like public universities, they may not be very responsive. Like they will not give you transcripts on time, and so just keep in mind that your grades provided by the examination department of the university has to be submitted. Like it has to be absolutely genuine final document that has to go. And in case you're unable to submit that, then you will have to make some kind of special arrangement where you get some preliminary document which can testify that you scored this much. But I submitted all my final transcripts because I applied after 2 years of graduating. But those who are immediately applying, who are in their fifth years, will have to figure this out. Burhan, would you
Yeah,
like to
yeah,
share on
just wanted
that?
to add to that because even in my case, I remember we had the normal transcripts that we get from our uni when we were doing the bachelor's, but when we had to submit the documents for our master's courses here, there was a specific sort of standard document that they need. It's a bit different from the ones we usually get from the university throughout our course. So, and like you said, it can be a tedious process with the university to get those documents, and you have to get them signed from a particular authority within the university, and then it can be accepted for your master's. So just make sure that you do that well in time, and you check with your university as well how they are providing it and what process you have to follow so that everything can be done in due course of time.
Yeah, that's very helpful to know. And yes, there will be standardized tests. I gave IELTS, and then accordingly you can choose which one you would like to give. And there can be problems in a lot of these English requirement tests. For example, my test went on for uh, 6 hours because my like I was doing the take home examination. So again and again it was like getting stuck. So they had to start the entire process again, and it just went for 6 hours. And that really affected my grades. But I was like, they were good enough to qualify me for it. But then you need to keep this thing in mind. So maybe doing an in-person test might make more sense than doing an online test. I did, I did TOEFL, by the way. Yes, sorry, I said IELTS. No, I did TOEFL, and it was a very bad, difficult experience. So please take a call on that. And GRE and GMAT, at least for law, that is not required. Burhan, are you aware
Yeah,
about?
I think it has more to do with the US universities, and Australia you don't necessarily require GRE. TOEFL or IELTS is good enough. Or you can also, like I said earlier, you can do the PTE test as well. It's still valid here in Australia, although, like I mentioned, there is some talk of that PT might not be valid in the future, but just keep an eye on that. Normally, PT is a much simpler test, a much simpler experience. So if it's still valid, you can go for PTE as well. Otherwise, TOEFL and IELTS are always valid.
Yep. Okay, okay. Yeah, and with respect to additional documents, at least I did not, but then there can be courses where you may need to demonstrate how skilled you are already. So Burhan, did you face anything of that kind where you had to give some
Yeah.
kind of additional document?
No, we did not. We did not require additional document other than the ones we have
Okay.
already discussed. But again, it will depend on the course. I think most of these details will be available on the UAE
Yeah.
website for that particular course. It's always important to just check the website, and you have to arm yourself with all the details beforehand so that the process is smooth.
Yes, yes. So can we move to the next slide, please? Yep. So here's the timeline. Yeah, I think we have already covered this, that there are two intakes, and do not rush, I would say. First, if you're in the fifth in the final year of your law school, then you should be able to start your course in July. So that's the timeline I also followed, not keeping in mind my law school. Of course, I was already graduated. So I made my application in March and I joined in July, and I heard back from them in April. They are quite responsive, by the way. And and yes, so Burhan, when did you apply and how did you think about your timelines when you were making your application?
Again, I did the same thing. I joined the July session. So again, this gives you a good opportunity because if you have two sessions, like you mentioned, that's not necessarily the case in the US. So you can take your time and plan it accordingly. You don't necessarily have to rush just to join the next session. So you can take your time. It's just a matter of 6 months, but that will give you enough time to look at the course, look at the university, look at where you in the city as well, like I mentioned, where you want to study to see if there are future opportunities. Just uh, get all those details covered, and then once you are fully informed, you can go for the next session because
Right.
it's just six
Sure.
six
And
months.
okay, sure, wonderful. So one Burhan, one interesting point to share with them is like regarding weather. So if you are joining the July intake, then it can be particularly challenging because it will be peak summer, at least in central or north India. And and like across India, I think it will be warm. But in Australia, it will be peak winter. Like there will be very, very chilly winds,
Particularly if
and
you're in
you
Melbourne.
can fall ill. Sorry?
Yeah, 'cause I'm just saying, particularly if you're in Melbourne, because it's quite windy and quite
Yeah,
cold
oh
here
yeah,
in,
yeah.
in July, as compared to some of the other
Yeah.
cities.
That's I had to face because I am speaking from New Delhi. So New Delhi was like it
Okay, of
was
course.
very hot. It was July. That's the I think the hottest one of the hottest months. And then I went there and it was about 6 degrees. But here in New Delhi it was some more than 30 degrees. But then one good thing is that their pollution and all is low. So falling ill, like there's less likelihood of falling ill. but still, that's an important consideration. But if you will
It is.
join in October, then it will not be that difficult.
Some of you might think that this is trivial information, but it's actually important because even some of the people who come over, like you mentioned in the July session, they are not always informed about this. You have to, like I said, information is key. So you have to be informed. I was informed about this earlier, so I got all my winter clothes from Kashmir, so I was well equipped to join the July session. But again, it's important to have all that information with you.
Yes, yes, that's right. So yeah, I think we can move to the next slide. Yeah. Burhan, why don't you take a dig at it?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So we're discussing the scholarships and the funding opportunities for a lot of these courses because I think some of you were asking about the fee structure as well. The fees can be quite high. It can be around 50,000, even up to $90,000 for some of the 2-year programs. So it's important to be informed about the various funding opportunities that the universities and the Australian government is providing, so that the costs can be at least some, if not fully, at least partially covered by these scholarship opportunities. So there are 3 different sources of funding. There will be the university funding. The particular university will be providing scholarships depending on the course and depending on how you're done beforehand in your bachelor's. Uh, for instance, there's this Future of Change scholarship. This is particularly for the Indian students. So again, large scholarships are targeted for particular groups of people. So you have to always look at those things as well, like with this particular scholarship, am I eligible for that in terms of where I come from and in terms of what course I'm studying. All of these factors come into play. Then there's the department funding, which is the within the university that a particular department will be providing scholarships. Like in this case, there's the Alex Chernoff scholarship. I think Husain already mentioned about it for masters in law. This is provided by the University of Melbourne. Again, with the other universities as well, particular departments will be providing particular scholarships for specific courses. Depending on what course you're taking, you need to go through that department's website, check all the opportunities that they're providing in terms of funding. And also there are some external scholarships that the government itself will be providing to all the students who come to Australia to study. And then you have to see whether you are eligible for that and what are the various requirements. You go through those websites, you check all the requirements. And if you tick the boxes, you might have to apply with some of the scholarships. You can automatically be eligible for it, but for a lot of them, you will have to apply. So again, you have to be mindful of what opportunities the government itself is providing, and go for those ones as well. Next slide, please. Husain, if you can elaborate on this, because I think this is more relevant to the course you're taking, so you might be able to give a few more details on this.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I got Alex Chernoff scholarship, and I didn't really apply for it. Like, all applications are automatically considered for this scholarship, all Indian applications. So in case your application is strong, you will automatically get it, and in case you don't, then you will not. So so I feel that the reason I got this. I mean, firstly, I'm really thankful to that I got this scholarship. It's very generous scholarship. The entire fees of 25 lakhs rupees, the tuition fees was waived off, and then I got living allowance of some 11 lakhs rupees. I mean, it is 10,000, no, 20,000 Australian dollars. And I am also getting a chance to do research assistantship, which pays about $40 per hour, which equals to some 2,200 or 2,500 rupees per hour. So, which is quite good. But of course, I'm not getting time to do it because study pressure is there. And plus, I don't need like money at this stage. But then those who feel that their expenditure is going high and they need money, then they do have an opportunity for them, which is like there, and you can just always resort to it. But then if you don't have funding, then it will be challenging for those who do not come from strong financially strong households. So you will need about 35 lakhs to 45 lakhs rupees per year for the entire year if it's a 1 year course. Because I'll just quickly break that down. So the thing is that your tuition fee will be like 25 lakhs rupees, and then your living expenditure is going to be about 3 to 5 lakhs rupees for 3 months. So in the entire year, you will end up spending about 15 to 20 lakhs. So you can save a lot of money by cooking food because food is very expensive there. And and if you want a good accommodation, then again, accommodation costed me, like we'll come to that later, but yes, it was costing me about a bit less than a lakh rupees per month. So it's that expensive. So general recommendation here, I wouldn't recommend anybody to go abroad on their own money, because I think it's a big expenditure for those coming from backgrounds where their parents do not have a lot of money and have to use their hard-earned savings to pay your fees. In that case, I will recommend wait for a while, gain work experience, and go only on scholarship. Because the returns, at least I can speak this for law, the returns that you receive on having a degree in your hand to show that you have already done a master's in law is not as high as the cost of the degree. That is about almost a 50 lakhs rupees. Yeah. So second, Burhan, would you like to talk about the second scholarship?
Again, these are, like I mentioned earlier, there might be specific scholarship schemes that the government is providing that covers your tuition fees, and there might be a stipend for international students who are doing particularly in the research degree. So again, it's important to know the course that you are taking. Some of the courses and that I looked at when I was looking at my master's, they were like coursework. So the scholarship opportunities there might be less as compared to the research degrees. So particularly if you're looking to pursue PhDs in the future as well, so we'll go through that research pathway, and generally for research, the funding is a lot more, so there will be a lot more opportunities for scholarships. So again, they will assess the academic record that you have, even while you're doing your master's as well, that will count as well. Then based on that, you might be eligible for some of these scholarships. This one in particular is for the University of Sydney. So again, depending on which university you are applying in, it will have its own scholarship programs. Next slide, please. So just to, again, give an example of the various scholarship opportunities that particular universities provide. So this one is University of, I think, New South Wales. This one's from the University of New South Wales, scholarships for international students. You can see there's the coursework scholarship, there's law and justice, again, depending on the course you're taking. So there's the business school scholarship, there's arts, design and architecture, international undergraduate, and postgraduate scholarship. So for the various courses, they have specific scholarship programs that you can apply for depending on your field of study. And all the details are provided on their website, so you can go through specific scholarship awards that they provide, and then check the eligibility, see if you're covering all those bases, and then you can apply for the scholarship. And like Husain also mentioned, with some of the applications, when you go for the application process, you will automatically be considered for some of these scholarship programs. So again, I'll just repeat myself, but it's important to know that for the course you are doing, the university you are applying to, once you have selected those, then you go through that website, you check the department, you check all the options that they provide in terms of scholarship and funding, and just apply to all that you're eligible for, and avail as much opportunity as you can, and be as much informed beforehand as you can. Next slide, please. So again, these are some of the opportunities that do not require an application. So when you apply for a course, you get automatically you're automatically eligible. So they will just consider you based on your academic record, based on your experience, all those factors that they would have enlisted on their websites as well. So you can go through that and see how good a chance you have of availing these scholarships, and then you go for the applications. Again, depending on the courses, you can see that there will be different scholarships based on the course. Next slide, please. So this is for Monash, because I studied at Monash. I'll just briefly go through their scholarship program. This one in particular, although this is just an example, this one is for the indigenous students here in Australia to promote studies of indigenous people here. Just to let you know that there are lots of scholarship programs that focus on the marginalized communities, that look at people who don't have as much of an opportunity as the other groups. So again, coming from the Indian subcontinent, it's again important for us to know that there are various scholarship opportunities that are particular to our community. Right? There are lots of scholarships that will be particular for international students. So all of these opportunities, because then it sort of restricts the pool, so you get a better opportunity of availing those scholarships. So it's again important to gather all of that information, know which scholarships you are particularly eligible for, and then go for those opportunities, apply throughout for those opportunities, for those scholarships. Next slide, please. So because I studied engineering, I'm just going through some of those particulars. This is the scholarship programs provided by Monash for engineering students. A lot of them are focused. Sorry? Ritika, if you can check the slide, it's getting a bit distorted.
Yeah, just a minute.
No worries. Thanks.
Let me share it again. Just a second.
Then the next slide is with
No worries.
respect to general tips. So it's okay. I think we can proceed with it, Burhan.
Sure,
Is that
sure.
okay?
Go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, with respect to general tips, now firstly, here I'll give you some tips about whether you should really do a master's or not, and what all considerations you should keep in mind when you're deciding that now you need to move on by doing a master's course. So the first thing is that don't think, at least for law field, I can say that don't think that doing masters early in your life will place you at an advantage which otherwise you will miss out on. So my suggestion will be that it's important to have some work experience, like about 2 to 3 years of work experience is good, in my opinion, because first 2 years at the workplace will be difficult for you, because a lot of upskilling will happen. You will learn professionalism, how to write an email, how to prepare a document which is clean and presentable. So these are, you know how to behave in an office, how to deal with disagreements, how to meet a deadline. So these are some work ethics that you learn, which otherwise are not there when you're in your law school doing your course, or law school or any educational institution. Because professors do not have so much time as your employer will. Like, I'm using the term time in the sense that your professor will not ask you that why did you write this word in this document, but your employer will ask you that hey, why did you write this word? Because in an office, money is involved, where your boss is going to be responsible to some other person, to a client, or somebody who is their boss up higher in the hierarchy. So my suggestion will be, go slow, develop work experience, and then apply. Second advantage is that in your 2 to 3 years of work experience, you read so much that you have a stronger foundation of knowledge. You have a stronger knowledge base. And when you do your LLM, then you have more reference points. You have more knowledge base to refer to when your professor is teaching in class. So at that time, you'll find that you have an edge over other students who are just directly coming from their educational institution. Like, of course, like how will a fresher compete with someone who has already performed well at an office where there was a hierarchy and there was great level of accountability. And third is that I mean another point is that you need to choose why is it that you are choosing Australia as a jurisdiction, because Australia has its own like benefits to offer which may not be there in other jurisdictions. At the same time, it might have some disadvantages. You have to figure that out on your own.
Yeah,
And
just to give you,
and
sorry,
yes, like
just to give an
yeah,
example, like in Australia, the immigration process is a lot smoother than many countries. We mentioned about work experience as well. So if you have around 3 years of experience or more than 3 years of experience, it also helps you when you're going for permanent residency, or if you're looking to stay long term in Australia. Those things can really help as well. Work experience is an advantage in that way as well. And like I mentioned, if you're choosing Australia, again, I wanted to mention this. We mentioned it on the second point that you should always look at the course, the university, but also the city that you're going to. There are different opportunities in different cities in Australia. So for instance, in our engineering field, if you are, say, in the chemical engineering field, you can look at Perth, you can look at Brisbane, where there are a lot more job opportunities later on after your studies. If you're in civil engineering, you might maybe look for Melbourne, you might look for Sydney, just because it's great city to live in as well, and there will be more opportunities here for these fields. So based on that, you can make the decision as well. So it's important to take a step back and explore all these options before you rush into a decision. And again,
yes. So I mean,
having said all that, yeah, just do not hesitate to apply. It's always important to take that step. And I think there are two aspects to this. One is if you want to do your master's, you want to pursue studies, you're passionate about a field. And then there is the aspect of going abroad, leaving your home, leaving your country, and going to a different place where there's a different outlook, there's a different culture. But it's that leap you take, and then things get a lot easier afterwards.
right, right.
Yeah, if you want to add that.
Yes, and like yeah, I mean, and one point is that like so for example, Melbourne, like for example, most in expensive cities, I think Sydney in Australia, and a bit cheaper is Melbourne. So these differences in expenditure will especially be felt when you're choosing your accommodation and when you're thinking about how much food costs. So Sydney's much more expensive when it comes to accommodation and other things. So before we go on to questions, so yeah, that's it from my side. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. If anybody has any questions, they're welcome.
So before that, I'll just read out the questions in the chat box that you've already answered. So the first question is, are the scholarships too available as per multiple application deadlines? And Burhan has answered that normally there will be a specific number of scholarships available every year, and it's provided on the scholarship pages of the university's websites. And there's another question on the transcripts. So the question is, I have mark certificates for each semester and a cumulative mark sheet for the final semester and all other semesters. Would those suffice as transcripts? And Burhan has again answered that the transcript is generally a separate document. It essentially has the same details, but the format might be slightly different that aligns with the requirement for the application process. Please check with the university as they might have particular process for providing those documents. And so there are a few more questions in the chat box. Does volunteering count as work experience?
Like it really depends. So for many universities require PQE, like post qualification experience. So that's where you are a full-time employee and the level of accountability is higher, and and usually it is the experience that you gain after graduating where you are doing a full-time work where you're being paid for the work that you do. So that is what counts as work experience usually. Like, of course,
Yeah, but
if there is Shivning scholarship in Shivning, they do consider volunteering work as work ex. But here, at least for Melbourne University, no, it's the full-time work experience that counts as work experience. But then, of course, if there is volunteering work that you have done and it is good, where you have worked on important projects, then in that case, of course, it will count, it will strengthen your profile, of course.
I think again there are two aspects to it. So in a lot of the master's courses, particularly in engineering courses, you don't necessarily require work experience. But if you're looking at the scholarship opportunities, then you again have to look at the eligibility criteria for those, and they might require some work experience, and that might help you with your scholarship application. So again, you have to look at those aspects differently. Some of the master's courses they might not require work experience, but the scholarship programs might. So you have to look at both before you apply.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So I think you've answered the second question as well, which is work experience required for each field. So the next question is, can you please once again explain the process of application through agents you mentioned? Also, how important is work experience specifically for LLM from University of Melbourne? As a final year student, will internship count for work experience?
Yeah, so what you'll have to do is that with respect to contacting an education agent, you just have to go on the website of Melbourne University, go to Melbourne Law School website and see that they will have list of education agents. I mean, the list of companies which provide services such as applying for masters or any degree in any other country. So just click on that option and they will provide contact details. So I chose IDP and then I filled in my details, gave my mobile number, and then I got a call back within I think 2 hours or something. There will be time slots. So you just have to make an appointment from there, and then the entire process will taken care of by the agent once you have had a conversation with them. They might call you to their branch office. I was called once, and then I think it will be completely fine. Secondly, whether internship constitutes work experience, I think it does. Yes, absolutely. Because if you're a student and then you can't really, of course, work, so your internships make a difference. So your grades are primary, and then work experience in the form of internships. And again, volunteering is something which does not involve money and level of accountability remains low. So I would keep them at the third, like, like, I mean, a bit less important than internships. So yeah, that's it.
So I'll move on to the next question. Uh, I'm a first generation applicant and I'm very clueless about the visa requirements for studying abroad. The Australian visa requirements mention having a health insurance and funds to show we can sustain ourselves there. But if we apply for a fully funded scholarship, the reason for that is because we cannot afford studying abroad. So, in case one gets a fully funded scholarship, do these two visa requirements still apply for them? How easy or difficult is it to find part-time jobs in Australia? So there are two parts to this question.
Burhan, like, would you like to go ahead with that?
Because can you just elaborate on that? Because you've gone through the scholarship program, so does that still require you for your visa process to still show you the funds and stuff? Because you've gone through the scholarship program, it's shown up,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
maybe you might have a better
No, no,
idea.
no. Okay. Yeah, no, I wasn't asked for my uh like I had to show that I have some bank balance because of
Yeah,
course
yeah,
they
of
don't
course.
want someone who does not have adequate funds to take care of themselves for some time. But then this scholarship was merit-based and not need-based. So they don't want to see that you are facing some financial hardships. They just want to see that you're good enough. And if you're the best, then you'll get the scholarship. But you will have to show some kind of uh, financial stability, because scholarship money is not received before you start your course, but it is received after few months. So I received mine in the month of September, whereas I received my no, in fact in early October, whereas my course started in late July. So for about 3 months, you can say you have to sustain on your own. And for that purpose, you will or might need to show your bank statement.
Yeah, again, like you mentioned, if you're going through an agency, they will help you and guide you in this process as well. They're already well informed on all the requirements for the visa in particular as well. Because normally from the master's application process, students are well versed, but with the visa process, they are not as informed. So the agencies can really help you there because they know the whole process through and through. And
Yeah,
regarding the part-time jobs, it can be tricky. It depends on the time of the year. It depends on because when there is a lot of inflow of students. Earlier we had COVID. There were a lot of variables there as well. But generally, if you are proactive enough, you should be able to find part-time jobs in Australia.
yeah, that's right. But then again, like it will be slightly challenging, because many of my friends who were not or not on scholarship in other courses, they were looking for work because it's a very expensive city. Like there's a huge difference in what you
Particularly in the recent times, I think the
like
rent and
spend in
stuff has
India.
increased as well. So, but the recent times,
Yeah,
it's a bit more
there
expensive.
was
Now,
inflation some time back. For example, cheapest meal that you can have would cost you about 800 rupees in Melbourne, 700, 800, the cheapest meal that I'm saying. And then your rent is something as high as your entire 1 month's salary in a good office in India, about 1 lakh rupees. So yes, many people do look for work experience, some part-time job, because many people do struggle to meet their ends.
but again, you shouldn't feel daunted by that, or you don't fret about that too much because particularly when you are starting your course, it might be a bit difficult to work and get adjusted to the lifestyle and coursework here. So maybe you need to keep some backup for that. But once you're well settled in your course, wherever you're staying, once you're settled there, you should be able to find work and you should be able to manage the workload accordingly.
Mike.
Oh, sorry, Ritika,
Uh,
your mic is turned off.
Sorry. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Do we have any more questions from the mentees? Right. So if there are no more questions, then we can end the session. So firstly, thank you so much both Husain and Burhan for taking time out of your schedules to be here with us. And thank you to all the mentees for attending the session. And before concluding, I just want to say that we have a workshop on scholarships to study in Ireland happening tomorrow at 6 p.m. IST. And as you may already know, we have all the video recordings on our YouTube channel, the link to which I'll paste in the chat box right now. And apart from this, if you have any queries, then you can always contact us on info@projecteduaccess.com. I'll also paste that link.
I would just like to take this opportunity to thank you for hosting the event and organizing it for the students, and just to let them know that they have any more questions, any queries, they can always reach out to us on LinkedIn or any other platform that's easy for them. We're always available to provide more information and help them out.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right then.
Yes, yes.
I'll
Thank you so
end the
much. Like, it
recording.
was a wonderful session.